Council Chambers, 14050.
Turn your mic on.
150 Olympic Drive, Clearlake, California, at 6 p.m. A roll call, please, ma'am. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton?
Here.
Councilmember Claffey?
Here.
Councilmember Kramer?
Here.
Vice Mayor Purdock?
Here.
Mayor Slotin?
Here. Go to Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vice Mayor Purdock, could you do the invocation, please?
Of course. Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, we ask that you would be with us tonight to bless this meeting, that we may do the best work that we can for this city, for those who work and live here, for those who come to visit. We ask a special blessing on those who are struggling and ask that you provide them comfort. And we say these things in the name of the Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we'll go to the adoption of the calendar. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No modifications, Mr. Mayor.
Make a motion, we accept the agenda submitted, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Purdock and a second by Councilman Kramer. A roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock?
Aye.
And Mayor Slotin?
Aye. We go to our first presentation, the presentation of September Adoptable Dogs. I assume that's Officer Hobbs who will take care of this, or Snyder? Go ahead.
We have North Bay is trying something a little bit new, so we have a video here. I want to try to make
okay.
this all work.
I was unaware.
Good, I got those big eyes. Nobody looked like they knew.
Sure. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can make this happen. It's not playing the video.
So what we're attempting to do with North Bay is trying to do an interactive video with the adoptable dog and some statistics and some actual employee interaction in an online video. We seem to be having some technical difficulties with it here. Okay, so there's audio. We're having a problem with the audio file. There is a video, so we'll play the slideshow real quick. All right, this is for the month of September, North Bay Animal Services. I'm sorry, I can't read from that far away. So here's their statistics for the month. I'm sorry, I'll walk over here.
Lieutenant, would it be-
Lieutenant,
can you take the mic with you?
Yeah, I just take my with me here.
Very good.
A little out of my zone here for this.
because I can't see that either.
All right, so this is for their calls for service. For 2022, they've had 15 neglect calls. They've, let's see, responded to 98 dangerous or animal bite reports. They've had 157 bark complaints. They've had 63 owner assists and 50 patrol calls. Police assist 28, also stray dogs at large 633. They've transported 16, and they've done 205 welfare checks. And then they've also addressed 71 wildlife calls for service. Now these are just their calls for service this year. All right, this is their assistance in the Tana fire. So I've been responding to calls for service during the Tana fire in Clearlake. Thankfully, this fire has been contained. We want to extend our deepest condolences to anyone affected. One call was this homeowner whose home was threatened. When they tried to find their dog, they were missing. Officers found them both safe and sound hiding. This is an event of a good reminder to keep a go bag ready, both for your family and for your pets. Anyone needing resources for their pets because of this fire, they can call their office at 707-762-6227. All right, here's a photo of the animal control staff. The two on the outside are the officers, and then the kennel techs in the middle. And I know there's a couple more of them as well. I believe Charmaine is taking the photo. All right, there's a full photo of the team. As you can see, they've got quite a few resources working down there with the animals. Sorry, folks, I'm trying not to block here. The enforcement officer team. This is their entire fleet, and then this is supposed to be our adoptable dog of the month video here. I don't know if I have any information on it. We'll see if maybe the video will play. And it's a cute video of him playing in the water down at the shelter in the new play area and the ponds, because it's been very hot. So they have a couple little play pools out there that they let the dogs run around and swim in.
What an improvement from what was.
Yep. And life released late is still awesome.
Yeah, we should be in line for more than my last report. We do have a lot of adoptable dogs down there, so this is one of them. Unfortunately, I don't know the dog's name, but if you guys would like to come down to the shelter and see the dog during business hours, you're always welcome to come down. Oh, cool, you got it going. Looks very playful. Once again, if you guys want to come down and spend some time in the play area with the adoptable animals, here's a good video of it. It's a nice little grass area. Lieutenant Hobbs worked really hard planting these trees and building this area for the dogs to play in.
Thank you, Lieutenant Hobbs.
All right. Was that the last one?
Ziggy.
Oh, the dog's name is Ziggy.
Ziggy. The dog's name is Ziggy. So again, I will hopefully have the next one will be a little smoother and we'll get
Thanks,
some audio
Lieutenant.
on it.
Did great.
Thank you.
All right.
Did great.
Hey, quick question. You shared some new stats there, which I think the first time the public has seen those in a little bit. Do those seem pretty much in line, those numbers, with past years?
I would have to compare them, but I would believe that they are consistent with our last year. Part of those numbers are from our transition over to North Bay. We did have them at the beginning of the year. Normally, I don't share those numbers with the council, so that was something new. I think they wanted to point out just basically their general calls for service and what they're addressing within the community.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to our presentation number 2, swearing in of new police department's employees. Lieutenant Hobbs, I presume?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and public. Tonight I want to thank everyone for coming. We'll be swearing in and welcoming 2 new police officers and 1 new dispatcher to our department. It's been a lot of work, hard work for them to get where they are today. All three have gone through extensive background processes, and we are happy that they are now part of the department. So if I could have everyone come up here, please.
Can I see him in the camera?
There
we go.
If you come out, Amanda. There we go. See you. All right, we're just going to give a quick bio on each of our new employees, and then we'll go into the oath of office.
Take it off again. Members of the council, first I have the honor of introducing our newest member of the Communications Division. I'd like to introduce you to Dispatcher Amanda Waller. Come on up. Come up right here. All right. I'd like to tell you, Amanda Waller was raised in Lake County, and she is a graduate from Middletown High School. She currently is a resident of the city of Clearlake. Amanda's hobbies are painting and drawing. She also likes hiking, but she ultimately says the most of her time is devoted spending with family and loved ones. I'd like to introduce you to Amanda Waller.
Welcome.
Next, I will introduce Officer Jesus Mesa. Officer Mesa is from Porterville, California. He graduated the Tulare Kings Police Academy in July of this year. His goal as an officer in Clearlake is to grow as a person and officer while getting to know the community. In his free time, he enjoys skateboarding, playing video games, spending time with his family, friends, especially his girlfriend, Hannah.
Welcome.
Okay.
Next, we have Officer Hector Sepulveda. Officer Sepulveda is from Cutler, California. He graduated the Tulare Kings Police Academy in July of this year. Officer Sepulveda's goal as an officer in Clearlake is to be able to provide something positive to our community and be a positive role model to the people he meets. He looks forward to working in Clearlake as it reminds him of the city he was raised. In his free time, he likes to lift weights, swim, and ride his ATV.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
Step back just a little bit there. All right. If you could raise your right hands and then repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Jesus Mesa, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right, next we'll do the badge pinning. If Officer Sepulveda and Officer Mesa have someone they want to come up for that, they can come on up now. There you go.
It's official now. Thank you. We'll take a couple of minutes of a break here.
If you guys would like to take pictures, or, that's why we'll take a break. What you going? So it's gone, glad they're applying.
Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Again, thank you guys. Thank you. You guys want to get photos with us?
Please,
All right.
please.
Want me to take a picture with your son? It's set up, so all you do is push here. It's just, yeah, gotcha. Photos are free now.
Take any of them. Everyone else want to get up there?
Let's try it on 3. 1, 2.
Want some more with everyone or one with everyone? Or?
Struggling to focus.
Yeah.
And then ya empezamos a hacer en grupos. All those inside. When we hear groups in the front. There you go.
Take a check.
All right, one.
Just kind of wiggling around a little bit.
Ahora ustedes quieren más. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ahora ustedes, la familia.
You want to take your family over here too, real quick? Right, let's do it. Yeah, take that. You guys want to go around, give everyone your family tour of the department? Anyone want? If you guys want to follow them, when you know the last one, they'll give you a tour next door at the police department.
Thank you so much. You want to check one? 1, 2. Do another one though, it came out blurry. What? Okay. All right, honey, go with your.
It's gonna break, it will.
Thank you. Go down your.
We're gonna do it.
1, 2, 3. Hold it there. Now you should do the epic one outside where you carry it. I've had one since they were little. He always carries him all the time. 2. 1, 2.
Read the meeting. Go there.
All right, just want to follow him, Sergeant Peterson, they'll give you guys a tour next door.
All right,
Back to work.
back to work.
You can get some on the
There's a lady there that mopes in.
Oh, okay.
It's covered. It's covered. He sent me a text. I knew it was coming. All right, we'll go to item number 3, a presentation of a proclamation declaring September 23rd, 2022 as Native American Day. Whereas, on Native American Day, we acknowledge and honor the first people of Lake County and Clearlake, who exemplify the value of all those in our community in their resilience, compassion, and strength. And whereas Lake County has been the home to people for more than 12,000 years, and the richly diversity cultures of the tribal nations indigenous to Lake County and Clear Lake have influenced every aspect of our community history. And whereas Native Americans have helped to make our community stronger and more prosperous, and whereas we celebrate the richness of the city's unique tribal history and traditions and the impact Native American cultures have had on every American. And whereas now therefore be it proclaimed that the Clear Lake City Council does hereby call upon all citizens to recognize the special contributions Native Americans have made to our city, and salutes those who have sought to honor the important role of the tribal leadership in our city past, present, and future. Dated this 15th day of September 2022, signed by me. And we have a representative from the Middletown tribe to come forward, and hopefully we'll give this presentation to you.
Need to be up by the microphone for the speech.
Thank you for coming. If you want to say something, you help me. Thank you. All right, this is the time for public comment. This is a time for any member of the public to address the City Council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the City of Clear Lake. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow staff and council to discuss issues brought before under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. I received one, is from a Julia Leone of 15894 22nd Avenue. And it reads as follows: sidewalks. We need more sidewalks in Clear Lake. Too many crazed drivers driving on the wrong side of the road, swerving off-road, risking pedestrians' life. This problem of hit and runs getting ridiculous, and many lives could be saved simply by adding sidewalks in high-foot traffic areas. I just want to comment on this, that we are in the process of several projects that will hopefully add sidewalks in downtown. Do we have anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There is one hand raised on Zoom, Mr. or Ms. Syed, Duria Syed.
Okay, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Duria Syed, and I'm an outreach analyst for the California Department of Insurance. I'm happy to be here with you to let you know about update on the work we have been doing on your behalf. It's a wildfire season, so I want to touch bases on that. We have a program called Safer from Wildfire Framework, an interagency partnership between Insurance Commissioner Laura and the Emergency Response and Readiness Agencies in Governor Newsom's administration. Its purpose is to protect life, home, and businesses by reducing wildfire risk. We are working right now with CAL FIRE, Cal OES, the Governor Office of Planning and Research, and the California Public Utilities. So the whole idea is it's the ground up approach for wildfire resilience, and it has 3 layers protection. We call it SFW 123 plan. Number 1 is to protect the structure, such as making sure your roof and vents are up to code. Number 2, the immediate surroundings, such as the brush too close to your home, and are there any flammable items stored under your deck? And number 3 is the community involved. How to involve the entire community from catching and spreading catching and spreading wildfire to other homes and businesses in the neighborhood. This includes enhanced infrastructures program like FireWise. And I just come here with the good news that last week Commissioner Lara submitted his insurance pricing regulation to the California Office of Administration Law that would recognize and reward wildfire safety and mitigation efforts made by homeowners and businesses. The regulation is the first in nation requiring insurance companies to provide discounts to consumers under the Safer from Wildfires framework created by the California Department of Insurance in partnership with the state emergency preparedness agencies. So just want to know that each company will submit submit their plans to implement these, and once they are approved by the department, they will then be in place. We are hoping the whole process to be done by January 2023. And basically, just wanted to be here to let you know that I'm your outreach analyst from the California Department of Insurance. So any need you guys have, or you all have, or the constituents have, please go on our insurance.ca.gov or call our hotline number 800-927-4357. We take pride that we have experts that they are going to walk you through all your insurance needs. And if we don't pick up the phone on time, our callback time is 2 minutes. So we just want to assure you that we are here for any needs, insurance needs that you have. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you. Do we have any more on Zoom? Madam Clerk?
There are no further hands raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Any of the public here that wants to address the council? If not, we'll go to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion?
Any changes?
Any? Well, come up to the microphone, ma'am. Please state your name when you do.
My name is Julie Leone. I put in the complaint about the sidewalks, and I heard what you said about adding more sidewalks downtown, but my concern was more near the schools. My sister almost got hit by a car today, and that's the whole reason I'm here. I am very concerned as an older sister and a guardian. Many children have to walk home from school, and none of the roads have sidewalks, and that's very concerning as like a parent figure. I know a lot of parents are concerned as well, because not everybody's home conditions are perfect, and not a lot of people can get rides home, can drive home, or, you know, a lot of people just have to walk. And I feel like sidewalks should be more of a concern for this community, considering that a lot of people are dying, and there's a lot of crosses along the roads. Basically saying something's died there, isn't that enough of a sign that we need more sidewalks? I feel like more action should be taken towards the sidewalks. Lives are being risked, and close to mine. I don't know, I just get a little emotional because it's close to home.
Appreciate your
I almost lost
comment,
my
ma'am.
sister today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, right? I just,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, anybody wants to add any comments on the consent items? If not, open it to the public. Nobody wants to pull that. We can bring it back to the council. Can I have an action on the consent?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Vice Mayor Purdock. Roll call vote, ma'am.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock?
Aye.
Mayor Slotin?
Aye. Go to new business, item number 10, presentation and discussion of Phase 2, Lake County Recreation Center Feasibility Study. This is direction to staff. Mr. Flora, this is your item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So you may recall that in July of last year, we received the Phase 1 sort of feasibility study related to recreation centers countywide. And so that was a high level, looked at a number of sites around the county and so forth. And since that time, we've been working with consultants. So this is a group, school district representatives, the city of Lakeport, the county, and the city of Clearlake. And so we've been working on kind of narrowed those various sites down to really 2 sites. There's been some conceptual design work and programming for the 2 locations. There's a community survey that was completed. There was tours of a number of existing facilities in the Sacramento region and cost estimates and other things that were developed. So we have our consultant team on board, Brian Whitmore, Mike Shelato, and Michelle Gable, and they're going to be going through a presentation of results of the survey, cost estimates, so forth, and then after we get through that and you ask any questions you need, we'll kind of talk about where we go next. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and kick it over to Brian, and hopefully you're prepared to share your screen with the presentation, Brian?
I am.
Okay.
Well, good evening, members of the council. Brian Whitmore, President, CEO of Studio W Architects. I'm joined here this evening by Mike Shelato from Shelato Training and Consulting and Michelle Gable from Aquatic Design Group. I'm going to share my screen.
We need to leave that door open then. Thank you.
And can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So we are back. I think you may recall we had an opportunity to present to this council a little over a year ago with the findings of the Phase 1 feasibility study, and we are back to present the findings of the Phase 2 feasibility study, which is really the culmination of a 2-part effort considering recreation and aquatics facilities in Lake County. I'm going to jump to the agenda here. We're going to talk a little bit about some project location opportunities. As was mentioned, we studied a number of sites, narrowed that down to 2. We conducted community outreach as part of Phase 2, which included a survey. That survey was published for about 2 months. We received roughly about 600 responses to the survey, which I think was very positive, and so we'll share the high-level results of that. We did put together some conceptual design, primarily for the purposes of testing the program that was developed in Phase 1 for both a recreation and an aquatics center. We put together capital cost estimates, as well as, with Mike's help, operational cost estimates, so the cost estimates of ongoing expenses associated with these facilities, and then some final recommendations. As you may recall, in Phase 1, we looked at a number of different sites, a total of 4 sites across the county. The first one was the West Shore swimming pool location. That was at Lakeport High School. That was the previous pool location in the county there that is no longer operational. We looked at Quail Run Fitness Center, which is also in Lakeport. That location is a privately run, currently existing facility that was considered maybe to be sold and then taken over and remodeled into the purposes of both recreation and aquatics. We looked at the West Side Community Park, which is the regional park in Lakeport. And of course, we looked at the Burns Valley Park location, the park that you folks are developing on the Clearlake side. Additionally, we studied 5 more sites. I'm going to go through these very quickly. This was really a response to the county's interest to sort of look at other locations other than the most populated locations of Lake County. We looked at a site, a small site in Middletown. We looked at a larger site that's planned for a regional park in Clear Lake Oaks. We looked at another site, Hammond Park, that is currently a park location, the upper part of the Lake County area. Upper Lake, we looked at a park location, and then finally in Kelseyville. Now, some of the criteria that we put together when we looked at the potential of sites is the synergies that happen amongst a lot of these sites. You can see some of the deciding factors there on the right-hand side. We want, ultimately, any sort of recreation or aquatics facility to do well. recognizing that this is a large investment. And so the proximity to other like types of uses, things like community parks, shared parking, co-location of libraries, centers, schools, other aquatics elements, but also placemaking principles. So things like restaurants, food service, hoteling, that sort of thing is really important to support some of these facilities, but also support the individuals that visit these facilities. So we really came back to option 3 and option 4, which was the West Side Community Park location at Lakeport and the Clearlake Burns Valley Park location. Again, partly because these are the 2 most populated areas of Lake County. They're more than likely to receive the most interest in terms of the number of people there, but also because of a lot of these other deciding factors, it made a lot of sense. High visibility, easy access to highways and freeways, et cetera, simply made a lot of sense to co-locate one or both of the facilities at these locations. We went through the process of surveying the community, as I mentioned earlier. I'll go through some of the community results. Like I said, we received just short of about 600 responses. As you can see here, in terms of who participated, 99% of the participants were Lake County residents. 82% of those were age 35 or older, and 41% were households with some sort of youth, so either children at home or multi-generational types of families. 83% of the people that we surveyed currently use some sort of recreation amenity. Some of the big ones there, obviously, a lot of folks use the parks. Some folks use the aquatics. You have the pool there in the Middletown area. Hiking and walking, sports fields, etc. Locations for where they use the recreation currently, 40% is in South Lake County, 36% in Lakeport, and another 18% in the city of Clearlake. The recreational center, we specifically asked questions about a rec center, what amenities might be missing, desired, or most important to them. And you can see some of the top criteria there. Missing amenities were youth amenities, trails, paths, bike lanes, a rec center itself, bowling, arcade, batting cage, mini golf, aquatics, gymnasium, and fitness. Desired amenities included fitness and aerobics, some sort of game room, gymnasium, and training room. And most important amenities, again, fitness, aerobics, adult sports and athletics, community events, and other classes. And there's a variety of different things here as well, spin classes, cultural arts, all sorts of different things that folks wrote in as some of the responses to what they were interested in when it came to recreation. When it came to the aquatic center priorities, 77% preferred some sort of combined facilities that maybe also offer recreation or outdoor features, and not just aquatics. About 70% looked at the idea of preferring indoor aquatics. Roughly 51% prefer, so when it comes to aquatic center priorities, you can see some of the desired amenities here: swim lessons, adult swim, family fun, outdoor activities, competitive sports. Most important amenities included public swim, again, swim lessons, lap and swim fitness, and competitive sports in that order. When it came to location, 51% prefer one of the main Lake County's main cities, and this reinforced, of course, the decision to really focus in on either Lakeport, Clearlake. 74% said they were willing to travel at least 30 minutes, and as you can see there, at least 16%, even up to 45 minutes, in order to access these facilities. We asked a question about visiting the facility. Of course, 95% said yes, they'd be likely to visit. 58% said they'd be likely to visit weekly. Visiting roadblocks might include the location being too far, the cost being too expensive, and some of their priorities included something that was safe and clean and sustainable with good parking and joint use. We did ask the question about structure of a joint use potentially, and also funding. 86% of the people that responded liked the idea of some sort of combined joint use, shared facility amongst the county and cities. And they also supported the idea of either a tax measure, a bond measure, some sort of impact fee, in addition to just membership fees, other grants, et cetera. So There's definitely overwhelming support. I think that was clear in the surveys that the Lake County community would like to see some sort of new recreation and or aquatics facility. Most reporting that they frequently travel up to 30 minutes to utilize these centers. And most respondents noted that youth was more needed than just about anything. So that was programs, functions associated with youth was something that was missing. The idea of a new aquatics facility was probably the most exciting, but certainly recreation as well. And while they were excited for new possibilities, there were concerns about location cost, accessibility, and safety and security. And there below is just listed again some of those top recreation and aquatics priorities. That enabled us to sort of test out the program we had put together in phase one, and we came up with some conceptual designs. We put together a typical design for a rec center. In phase one, we identified a program that was roughly 15,000 square feet. This floor plan represents roughly about that size. This offers an 84 by 50 court gymnasium with 2 cross courts, the ability to play tennis, or volleyball there as well. We have an indoor multi-use court for the potential of pickleball, an aerobics, cardio weights area, a game room area, concessions and catering area. Certainly a space of this size can be used for community events, not just athletics. And then of course your support facilities, administration, restroom facilities, locker room changing facilities, etc. We looked at the idea of, since we had come into phase two knowing that the city of Clearlake at least had a very strong desire to look at a recreation center, we looked at where might this recreation center go on the Burns Valley location. This site plan was part of the master plan, I think, that's been put together by a civil engineering group that identified some of the fields and the parking and storage areas and so forth that you're looking to develop that Burns Valley location. The idea that a rec center could be more centralized, being close to the library, being sort of the center of that park area, obviously providing restroom facilities and other types of things that be centrally located makes a lot of sense and saves some of the cost of the development of the rest of the park area. We looked at even the space around the rec center, programming for things like playgrounds and outdoor activity spaces, the ability, again, to utilize this as a bit of a community center and open that up to the exterior and nice evenings or something like that makes a lot of sense. And just some renderings we put together, looking at the possibility of pre-manufactured systems and things. Really the purpose for this was to try to identify costs. What sort of cost might a facility like this be in today's dollars? By comparison to that, we developed also a floor plan and associated site plan for an aquatic center. And judging from sort of the reaction we had previously of co-located aquatics and rec center, both in Clearlake and in Lakeport, when we embarked on phase two, we looked at the idea of saying, what if Clearlake really focused on the rec center and Lakeport focused on the aquatic center? Somewhat splitting the baby there in terms of the costs and the fact that, again, the survey results said that a number of people would travel throughout the county in order to reach these destinations. So this aquatic center program, again, was testing out the program we developed in phase one, but with the idea that something like this could be located at the West Side Park location, Lakeport. The building features administration, locker and changing areas, restroom facilities, showers, sort of a party room or professional development space, and then pump and storage area for chemicals. The pool facilities, one is shown here as an 8-lane pool facility. Recommendation is if we were to consider competitive swim that we really would want to do no less than at least 6 lanes, and 8 lanes would certainly make that much more attractive to the community. This would be more than likely a community pool also for education, so water polo or other types of features. The smaller pool is more of a smaller children's activity pool, and then you can see their bleachers amenities as well. One thought is that this could be a covered pool, could be built certainly as an outdoor pool, but could also be phased to consider some sort of cover feature there to make this an indoor pool. And again, survey information indicated that an indoor pool and the ability to operate an indoor pool 12 months a year was desired. We looked at the location there of the West Side Park, kind of in phase 3, which is off to the west-hand side of the area that's currently not yet developed, rather, of West Side Park. If we focus in there, based on the master plan, not only does Lakeport have the room to accommodate aquatics, but they could also accommodate in the future some sort of similar recreation center, like what was developed there conceptually for Clearlake. And these are some of the renderings that were put together. This shows that structure as the potential for an indoor pool. This is actually a pre-manufactured structure by a group called Open Air, based on a concept that was developed in Placer County. The aquatic center there on the right-hand side with the potential of a future recreation center there combined at that West Side Park location. And again, some of the other renderings. So when it comes to the cost estimates, we worked with our professional cost estimators, provided the plans and the renderings, made sure that they identified some of the costs that were involved. When it comes to a rec center, you can see there the area square footage of just under 15,000 square foot. There's about 38,000 square foot of associated site. And generally speaking, in construction in today's dollars, this includes rather significant contingency, but around $12.9 million of what you see there. Now, it's not to say that you can't build something for less. I'd say this is probably worst case scenario, but again, based on the survey information, some of the programming that we identified, it seems like a lot of the amenities would want to fit sort of this cost model. You do have soft costs, so all the ancillary costs, obviously, of putting together a project like this, that generally we see at about 25%. So somewhere around maybe $16 million when you add soft costs in, if you're looking at that type and size of facility. By comparison, an aquatic center is a little bit more, closer to about $20 or $21 million if it's covered, maybe $12 to $13 million if it's an outdoor pool facility, and then the soft costs associated with it. So these are, not inexpensive facilities, obviously, when it comes to the type of equipment, the mechanical engineering, the electrical engineering, of course, that goes into these things. The pools, in particular, and their sophistication are rather expensive, but we did want to identify sort of what might be a very conservative approach to providing a facility that's attractive to the entire community and really brings not only interest in that location, but really an interest from the entire county and maybe even beyond the county regionally. When it comes to the operational estimates, I'm going to turn this over to Mike Shellito, since Mike was involved in putting this together. These are the ongoing costs that we would anticipate for these types of facilities on a year-by-year basis. So Mike, you want to jump in?
Sure, thanks, Brian. In developing the cost estimates, we were able to use some actual benchmarking. The two facilities we looked at most closely and that we actually toured in our tour that we did in May were the Roseville Sports Center, which you see a picture of the gymnasium space and the fitness area. Although the Roseville Sports Center is a bit bigger than the 15,000 square foot that as outlined by Brian. But what you can see is a 12-month operation. This is a facility that runs pretty much all but 360 days a year, 7 days a week, sometimes up to 12 hours a day. Most of the revenue that runs the sports center that we're applying to this model are recreation classes, youth and adult sports leagues, senior leagues, fitness drop-in, a daily fee, as well as memberships to use fitness, aerobics, spin, karate, all of those facilities. The center gets used and rented a lot for both community gatherings, crab feeds, social gatherings. So that's got factored in the revenue, and then concession revenue. So all told, currently the Roseville Sports Center that we base this on is doing actually a bit better than $245,000 a year in revenue. When you look at operating costs, includes both full and part-time salaries. And developing that, you'll see a breakdown in a second. Salaries be around $400,000, materials and supplies about $200,000. So the overall net operational subsidy, if you subtract the revenue from the operating costs, is the net cost recovery about 42%. Dividing that by 85,000 visitors, which is currently being generated by facilities, about $4 a visit. The next slide is really detailed and is included in the report. And I won't go through all this. I just want to point out that this was really more detailed. These were actual numbers that were applied to this facility. You see one full-time recreation supervisor with salary and benefits, a half-time park maintenance worker to look after the place, and then a whole lot of hours of temporary part-time hourly employees. This might be a bit on the high side, with salaries being a bit higher in the Placer County region, but a facility, again, that runs 7 days a week would be have a lot of people that open and close the doors and run the programs from aerobics to classes to checking you in. Materials and supplies are listed on the right-hand column. You can see it's very detailed. The next slide looks at if we were to build an indoor pool, and the picture that you see on the pictures you see on the right, this is the indoor pool that we visited in Roseville. It's almost identical to the one that's being currently proposed. It operates, again, 360 days a year. Recreation swim currently generates around $85,000 a year. And revenue fitness passes and drop-in. Because it's year-round, it gets used extensively by adults and older adult seniors. Instructional programs, swimming lessons, around $275,000. Rentals for teams, community groups, youth is factored in about $85,000. Miscellaneous revenue, which could be the meeting rooms, party rooms, those kinds of things. So total revenue is about $675,000. Annual visitors to the current facility in Roseville is around 115,000 people annually. Salaries, again, full-time is one aquatic supervisor, half-time maintenance person, and a whole lot of part-time people, from lifeguards to swimming instructors to water aerobics teachers to cashiers. All of that you'll see in the next slide. And then materials and supplies in terms of chemicals, facilities. So this is a breakdown of all the materials and supplies and facilities. So again, the facility, if you back up one slide, Brian, again, you can see a cost recovery around 64%, could have a net operational subsidy of $382,000, and would break down to about $3 a visit for each visitor. We also looked at if we were just to build a outdoor facility. So take the floor plan that Brian outlined, and you built an 8-lane facility plus a teaching pool, a water aerobics pool. Typically, those facilities run just summer season only, and that would run, let's say, from Memorial Day to mid-August when school goes back into session. That would be fairly typical. The other thing that could influence that schedule in Lakeport is if the Lakeport School District wanted to use the pool for high school swimming, that would go into spring a little bit, would be assumed to be their cost to pay for the use of the pool during those months, whether or not Lakeport wanted to do things like water polo. But there is interest on the part of a recreation swim team, the Channel Cats, to use that facility. So this is a much more conservative model, really operates pretty much summer, unless it gets rented by the school district for the spring. So you can see public swim would be around $40,000, swimming lessons around 40, fitness maybe 10, recreation swim team rent around 10, depending on what the school district did or didn't do. That would be in addition to that. Salaries much lower because it's a seasonal operation, around $200,000. You really wouldn't need any full-time employees. Materials and supplies includes chemicals, utilities. Annual cost about $350,000. So net operational subsidy is around $250,000. It isn't going to get the same kind of use that a year-round facility could generate, but certainly it doesn't have the same construction costs nor annual operating costs. So this budget was derived from, for those of us, when we were touring facilities, we looked at the Antelope Community Pool, which was a joint venture between the Sunrise Recreation and Park District and the Roseville Joint Union High School District that built a joint use facility next to a high school. So these numbers were taken from their actual budgets. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or turn it back to Brian.
Yeah, let me just jump into kind of some final recommendations, and then I think we can have a chance to answer questions. This is a very high-level slide as it relates to some of the things that we've already discussed with both the cities and the county, but really what we see here is in order to achieve success in any number of these types of projects, it's really going to demand some sort of structure that currently does not exist between the various parties. The thing that we felt, and if you may recall in phase one, we had multiple different structures that we explored, from joint use to joint powers authority to formation of a special district, those sorts of things, the pros and cons associated with each. I think it makes the most sense to look at the idea of a joint powers authority. We do not see a lot of special districts formed over just one or two facilities. Oftentimes special districts are formed over a plethora of different parks and other recreational amenities, not just the facilities themselves. Joint use really demands that someone takes the lead and then finds some partner to obviously assist with capital costs and the ongoing maintenance and operations costs, whereas a joint powers authority is really a partnership from the get-go. You're forming a bit of a development group to move forward, develop the facility in partnership with one another, and then of course in partnership to maintain that facility over time. We were even talking today about the idea that could be more than one joint powers authority, with the idea that Clearlake perhaps has its own focus, Lakeport has its own focus, that the county might be involved in each, but you might have a joint powers authority that includes the county, the city of Clearlake, and then its associated school district, whereas the county, Lakeport, and Lakeport Unified School District may form its own JPA. And with the intent to sort of exclusively look at those sites, develop what it is that's best suited for them, and then move forward. Funding, there are a number of one-time funds that are available. Even Lakeport Unified, I think, committed, we presented to them last night to, I think, a little over $1 million, 1.2 million or something from their prior bond measure in terms of some sort of aquatics facility, because that was a promise they had made with their prior bond. There are a number of different sources. We've identified some of those in our report, but generally speaking, a lot of that needs to emerge over time and try and figure out between the county, the two cities, and school districts what is available and what can they put forth. There is thought of a bond measure. JPA can move forward with bond measure, but that does require a supermajority. Whereas obviously school district would be more of a simple majority. Ongoing costs are more than likely going to be shared through some sort of general fund subsidy. But again, you find enough partners there, the roughly $300,000 annually, depending on if it's a rec center or it's an aquatic center, would be something that would be shared through maybe 3 or 4 different partners each year. The idea of phased construction obviously makes a lot of sense. Of course, we're not seeing construction costs go down. I know some of these numbers are shocking. That's a lot of the feedback we've received from City of Lakeport and Lakeport Unified, but we've seen probably 25 to 30% escalation in the last 3 years during the pandemic. So they're certainly not going down, but with the idea that you could phase construction, you could focus on the things that are most important and add on to these facilities over time. That's certainly something that could be considered. And as we demonstrated with the pool, we could look at the possibility of an aquatic center that's an outdoor resource and eventually be built as an indoor resource with some sort of structure over the pools themselves. So that is our presentation for this evening. Be happy to answer any questions, and as I understand, Alan's going to have a further conversation with the council.
All right. Any comments from the council?
No.
I have one question. You used the city of Roseville and that area as your guide for cost, and I think it's somewhat, the demographics of Lake County is very different. Income levels are not the same as in Roseville or that area. So I'm kind of concerned about that part.
This is Mike. You know, in developing the revenue and expenses, one thing I would point out that yes, there's a difference in the community that is correct. But it also, the facilities there, there's 3 other different pool complexes that could run. The pricing in developing those revenue models were intended to be affordable or not on the high end. So it was acknowledged that there would be a difference in that for sure. You know, the costs, as I outlined, it could be lower with salaries being lower, those kinds of things. But trying to keep admission fees or swimming lesson fees, use fees very competitive in the market. So that, I think that's something we were very mindful of to do that. And so there could be differences. But that being said, you know, looking at the county of 50-something thousand people, the demand, I think, for swimming lessons could easily reach that number of 6,500 lessons a year. That's very doable. The use of the facility for fitness and lap swimming, I think it would be a very popular facility. So clearly there's a difference. Those estimates aren't identical. They're somewhat lower, and they could be lower. Certainly, I think I shared on the rec center side, the facility that's being proposed is a bit smaller. And if the facility ends up being smaller, that would hold true as well.
Thank you. We have some councilmen on Zoom. Mr. Claffey, please, go ahead.
Yes, first request, if you wouldn't mind, could you share the survey data? I'd like to see sort of the gap between some of the areas. The inverted pyramid is good, but I'd like to see how big some of those gaps are. So I'd really appreciate that. The second question for the Burns Valley site in the rec center. Now, I know you went into that now thinking of an aquatic center would go in there 15, 20 years down the road. Did you talk about a potential expansion? Is there space between the ball fields where that plaza is going to be to potentially expand into an aquatic center someday?
I think you have the ability to expand into aquatics. You know, what I would suggest is if you're looking at, you know, before you sort of put shovel to the earth out there and begin turning that over, that there probably is maybe a little bit more master planning that goes into that space for that ability. You know, certainly with West Side, you have a little bit more room in Lakeport. So, you know, that was a situation where it was easy to sort of say if they want to focus on aquatics first and then have the ability to build a rec center later, they've got the room to do that. It's a little tighter on the Burns Valley site. However, I think with some shifting of things around and maybe some differing amenities out there, I think that's certainly doable. And I think, you know, depending upon the ultimate size, if it's more like a 10 to 12,000 square foot facility versus say 15,000 square foot, that's only going to make more room for something like that in the future.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Any more questions?
I don't know if Joyce has
Councilwoman
any.
Overton, you have any questions? You've been quiet.
No, I'm just reading it now. I think I've got the gist of things. Thank you very much.
All right, very good. Any more questions? for
Well, I
staff?
mean, I think it would be good to have some feedback from the council on what next. So this is kind of, this presentation is sort of the conclusion of the phase 2, and you know, our situation is a little bit different than Lakeport because we already are moving forward with the sports complex, and we've made some plans toward the rec center stuff as the second phase. And so, you know, I think the timing is great on that. But, and from my perspective, regardless of sort of this countywide effort, you know, we believe that the community needs a recreation center. And so if nothing happens there, we'll continue towards that goal. But I do think it is a really good opportunity to work collaboratively with the city of Lakeport, with the county, with our school districts, and maybe have a couple of facilities in the county that the community really deserves. So, you know, any feedback you have on this sounds good, we're on the right track. Do you want to put additional effort into collaborative talks. I think there's value, but if y'all tell me that, let's just do our thing, then that's what we'll do. But really like to get some feedback on that. And I think we got some recommendations related to JPA and that type of thing. I mean, there's a number of things that have been kicked around on what's the best. I think all of us sort of conceptually agree at this point with the plan that we have. That probably makes the most sense for us. But, just looking for a little bit more on how you guys are feeling as far as where we move forward from here. And I do think that at some point, Director Lars Ewing is the county's public services director, who's been an awesome partner on this, and is really looking to work with us any way they can. It would be nice to get some comments from him or ask him any questions you may have.
All right, Councilman Kramer.
Well, I would agree that I think we are a ways down the road on our fields and the recreation center as a second phase. I do like the idea of a JPA and perhaps a sharing of if Lakeport is heading towards an aquatic center first and we're concentrating on ball fields and the rec center, we both maybe proceed. And I do like the idea of the JPA, especially looking at the costs. If those costs are anywhere near, what we think they'll be, then I think we are going to need help beyond the city to keep that, even our recreation center, operating the way we want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are big, but, we've raised $8 million in the last year just for the sports complex, so I think.
It's more the operation of it.
Right, yeah.
I think that we need to keep going forward with what we have, because we are a little further down the road than just conceptual at this point, I think. And keep talking about the JPA.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
I concur with Councilmember Kramer's comments. I do feel we need to keep pushing forward, but I like the idea of a JPA. I think this community has needed an aquatic center or something similar to that for years. I'd love to see something that would essentially be water safety from infant to senior exercise programs. It was wonderful taking the tours of the many facilities that we visited that day in Sacramento County. And it just brought, to me, a more confirmed commitment to what we need to do. So I hope that gives you the direction you're looking for.
Okay, Councilman Claffey, you had some additional comments?
Yeah, I think we all know that providing activities for our youth is a priority among our residents, and I think for us. I do have some hesitation around operational costs, and I think if we take a step back as well, we're building this Burns Valley Sports Complex. That's going to see an increase in operational costs. We have 2 parks right now that I think are somewhat underserved in Highlands and Redbud. At some point, we're going to renovate and enhance, hopefully, the quality of service there, the splash pad as well. So, if we're looking at 5 years from now, an extra $500,000 in operational costs for our parks, I just want to make sure that we have a way to fund that. And I don't know if that's a workshop that we have before we even go into the JPA process, but assuming we do this on our own, and I think we all agree that this would be a good step forward if we end up doing the bond, and we know our city staff is incredible at getting these one-time project costs. I'm actually not worried about the construction itself. I'm more worried about the legacy if we're going to maintain a high quality of service for all of our parks system-wide. I just want to make sure that we really think through that before we commit.
Thank you. Councilwoman Overton, any last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Claffey that we do need to maybe have a workshop. I like that idea. I'd like to see when you're talking about a JPA, what is that going to really consist of? Because no offense, the aquatic center in Lakeport is really not going to benefit much of our citizens down here. My senior
We're not asking you to sign anything quite yet, but we just want to make sure the support's ready to move forward, so.
Just in general, my point of view, I like full speed ahead with the rec center. I think that's very badly needed, and I think we have already some commitment from the school district to actually use the facilities in other soccer leagues and baseball fields are very involved in it, so go ahead with the rec center and we'll figure it out. I do concur with both Councilman Claffey and Councilwoman Overton that we need to make sure that we can maintain it at a high level. And I'm a little bit concerned about bond measures on these items, especially if it's a countywide. Like I said, I don't think it would, if it would pass, if we just look at the city of Clearlake or those kind of things. But, maybe some polling needs to be done.
Yeah,
to
we'd
see
certainly
how,
have
if
to.
that could work.
Yeah.
Because I think just from some feelings I get out of Lakeport, it's, another bond measure for a swimming pool probably wouldn't fly very far.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of work in that area that we, need to dig in on and figure out all the options. We just want to make sure that everyone's pushing in the same direction before doing that, so.
While we're still in discussion phase, we do have our county expert,
Yeah.
Mr. Ewing, in the room, and
Yep.
I'd kind of like to hear some of his feedback.
We're opening up to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was waiting for. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director, which includes Parks and Recreation. So, first off, I want to commend the city for the work that you are doing on Burns Valley. The parks right out here, Austin is amazing to see, and that's exciting for a kid who was born and raised here, and a guy who plans on dying here, and would love to see my great grandkids playing. I think it's wonderful. So I'm excited about that. And this Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors will be receiving the same presentation. So, obviously their recommendations are going to be their own. I'll just tip my hat a bit that my recommendations are sent to them will be essentially what was presented here. The operations costs, I mean, that's wonderful to hear as the department head who's responsible for managing, a few dozen parks around the county. That is, you can build it, but can you maintain it? That's the big picture question. But what I would emphasize is that where there's a need, we need to identify a way to make that happen. The county, we are just about to start. In fact, we just started on a countywide Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan, where a part of that is a needs assessment. What do we have? But more important, what don't we have, and what does the community need? What does the county at large need? So there's a lot of overlap with that effort, with this effort, and the feasibility study is important. That word, we were just looking to see what is feasible. Yes, we did some survey work, but we did not do polling, and that was a recommendation that I mentioned just last night at a school board meeting for this is polling. If you build it, they will come. How about if we build it, will they come? And let's find out a little bit more information. But I'm going to come back to the commendation to you of moving ahead with this rec center, and you're leaps and bounds ahead of any of the other facilities, and I think to Alan Flora's credit, kind of reeling in and trying to bring in some other parties that might participate with an endeavor that is truly regional in nature. These facilities will not just attract city residents. They'll be attracting an unincorporated county, potentially even further than that. So I'm excited about it. I'll be encouraging the Board of Supervisors to recommend continuing work on it. But we don't have certainly any answers. So continuing to dive in. So kind of up on my soapbox, just giving you maybe a piece of excitement about it without any hard answers. But I think the collaboration has been wonderful with the two cities, at the county, at least with me through Public Services, to include some of the school districts involved there. So, and there's other opportunities as well, with health organizations, tribal organizations. There's just there's a lot of opportunities. So I will wrap my comments up with that, and I'll stand up here if you have any questions for me. Otherwise, I'm happy to go back in the cheap seats.
Thank you.
All right.
Do we have anybody on Zoom that wants to comment on this, Madam Clerk?
We do have a hand raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Elizabeth Larson.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm curious regarding funding mechanisms and organization. I don't understand why this is not being discussed in the context of a county-wide recreation district, which seems like something that would answer a lot of the questions of the needs for different communities. I don't think it would just be 2 facilities. I think it would be a lot of facilities plugging into a rec district. If there's a county master plan underway, certainly that seems like an opportunity to look at it. But I'm just curious about that, because there's been a lot of talk about equity and inclusion, but this plan isn't equitable or inclusive. It's favoring 2 areas, and it's really heavily weighted toward Lakeport. Of the 9 places that were studied, 3 are in Lakeport, and there's other facilities around the county that you can purchase and actually have facilities in place with some updating. You could have something for a fraction of the cost that compared to what you're suggesting. So I'm just curious about why this isn't being discussed, and why the thoughts are that a bond measure would fly, considering the issues with Lakeport Unified and their bond measure, which, yes, promised a swimming pool, and people didn't get it. And I think that's just going to be a hard sell. But I think a rec district countywide would certainly be an easier sell, and probably would give you more steady long-term funding.
Thank you for your comment. Go ahead.
I could make a couple comments, and then I think we might ask Mike to address this a little bit. But we certainly have talked about doing a rec district. It does open up a little bit more options for funding facilities and operations. I like the idea personally, because I would love to roll in like a regional, trail system into something like that over time. But, Mike briefly mentioned it earlier, but, would be very unusual to have kind of 2 facilities operating under a district model. And so I personally, I don't think we should take it completely off the table at this point in the analysis. There's some real advantages, we believe, for the JPA model, but there's some other advantages having the district model as well. And I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, Mike, but I think you have some experience related to this. It might be helpful to just kind of share your opinion.
Yeah, there are a number of large recreation and park districts, special districts around California that overlay multiple cities. Probably Brian mentioned the Truckee-Donner Recreation Park District overlays the town of Truckee, Tyler-Donner Homeowner Association, the unincorporated areas up by Truckee. That's on the smaller scale. In the Bay Area, the Hayward Area Recreation Park District overlays unincorporated areas as well as 3 cities. That's another model. What is unusual in these cases, the Recreation and Park District provides this recreation and park services to those communities, the unincorporated areas, as well as the incorporated cities within the district. And so what that typically means that the city would not have its own park and recreation department, would not necessarily maintain their parks. That would be maintained by the district. So up in the Sacramento area, the Cordova Recreation and Park District overlays the city of Rancho Cordova, overlays the unincorporated areas and some new cities forming. So it is a model, and you would go through LAFCO. To create a special district, it would have to be
approved to do that, and it becomes its own taxing authority that can either be a independent district that has its own elected board of directors, or in some cases there are dependent districts that really are an arm of typically the county on dependent districts. And so, it would be a decision, I think, the cities of Clearlake and Lakeport and the other cities in the area is that, do you see the advantages of turning over the provision of parks and recreation and maintenance of parks, trails, all of those kinds of things to a wider agency, another agency? There may be some hybrid where you keep some things that are yours, let's say parks or plazas or town squares, that exists. But typically creating a special district is a big deal. And there has to be enough responsibility that would make sense. As Lars was talking, as they are looking at the county-wide master plan, that's something that the county could evaluate. You all could talk about that from the city standpoint. We had an earlier conversation is, do you see wanting to turn over, let's say, park maintenance, community parks, neighborhood parks to another entity? That could be done in a special district. But typically, as we said, it would be, I'm not aware of any special districts that just operate a couple of facilities.
Well, you said that.
But could be something you could research. One of the things I was going to add about the comment, as you're pursuing the rec center, I had the opportunity, 8 or 9 years ago, to work with the cities of Calabasas and Agoura Hills in Southern California, and they built jointly a 30,000 square foot recreation center together via a JPA. So it was two cities that came together to build this. That particular facility is bigger, twice as big, about 30,000 square feet, but it operates at 90% cost recovery. Again, a little different demographics in Calabasas and Agoura Hills. But nevertheless, the one advantage that they got a several $1 million from the state of California because it was a joint venture. And the state, there was a time, the state was supportive of doing that. So I think there are models out there of building rec centers as through a JPA. You certainly could pursue investigating forming a special district and what that would include. It's doable, but it would be much more complicated.
All right. Thank you. Any more public comment? If not, we'll bring it back to the council.
Mr. Mayor, I have a submitted emailed comment.
Okay, please go ahead and read it, ma'am.
This submitted comment comes from Judy Barnes, who states, "A recreation center in Clearlake would be a very good idea. My hope would be that it would include an Olympic-sized indoor swimming pool to provide year-round recreation and fitness to Clearlake residents, especially youths." And that concludes her comment.
Thank you. Any additional comments on Zoom? Like I said, we'll bring it back to the council for deliberation. Any discussion more, and are we kind of clear on direction to staff at this point?
Unless there's anything else you want to add, I feel like we have some good direction for this point. Move forward. We're planning on doing our thing, and even if we have ours built and operating, and some partnership ends up happening later, that we can, that's great. But we'll continue to stay engaged in this. It'll be interesting to see what direction we get from the Board of Supervisors on how involved they want to be, and hopefully they're willing to, invest in this model. So we'll see.
All right.
That's exactly what I feel.
All right.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Brian, Michael,
Thank you for the
Michelle.
presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
All right, we'll go to item number 11. Discussion of mutual aid agreement between the City of Ukiah, City of Fort Bragg, City of Willits, City of Port Arena, City of Clearlake, and City of Lakeport. Mr. Flora.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So This is just kind of an overarching mutual aid agreement that came out of some discussions between the regular city managers meetings that we have between the Mendocino and Lake County city managers. There was some interest in kind of creating this umbrella agreement that we might be able to support and help each other a little bit more closely during emergencies and facilitate reimbursement of funds if that was an option based on some type of emergency. So I didn't follow up to double check. I think a number of the other cities have already approved this agreement. I'm not sure if everyone else has yet. But anyway, we thought it was a good idea to support each other, and I'd look to address any comments that the council has about it.
Any questions for Mr. Flora? If not, Councilman Claffey or Councilwoman Overton, any comments on this? Nope. Okay, we'll open it to the, excuse me.
I just, so am I correct reading this, that if we provide mutual aid to them, they provide to us, we will?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really envisioned to be to facilitate that. I mean, there's always times where we help each other out, or not so much Mendocino County at this point. We'll borrow a piece of equipment or do something like that, and we don't always charge them. But particularly in emergencies where there is the ability to get state or federal reimbursement, this sets us down that road. But if there was some situation where, our dump truck dies and we need some help, normally we will go rent one, but this just helps facilitate that process that, we could come to some agreement with them and move forward.
All right.
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right. Councilman Kramer.
Just a question for Mr. Jones. Is there any legal reason or limitations in our being able to do this?
No, only if you think it's to your best benefit, and I see that it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open it to the public. Any public comments on this, Madam Clerk, on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll bring it back to the council.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion
Proceed.
to approve this mutual aid agreement providing for emergency assistance among the city of Ukiah, city of Fort Bragg, city of Willits, city of Point Arena, city of Clearlake, and the city of Lakeport, and read by title only, and instruct city manager Flora to sign the agreement.
And I second.
We have a motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Vice Mayor Purdock. Voice call vote, please.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock?
Aye.
Mayor Slotin?
Aye. Go to item number 12. Consideration of an amendment of agreement with Pacific Gas and Electric for the use of community/senior center for non-PSPS emergency. Mr. Flora.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So, as you know, since PSPS events were initiated by PG&E, we've been using the Community Senior Center for what they refer to as community resource centers during those events, for where people can come and charge items and get water and so forth. And so we had an initial agreement a number of years ago, and then last year there was an updated license agreement for a 5-year term that was approved by the council to cover these uses a little bit more. I think PG&E kind of wanted a more consistent agreement across all the agencies that were providing facilities. And then earlier this year, they reached out and said that they would like to request amending agreements. So the way the current agreement is they're only allowed to operate a community resource center during a PSPS event. And they envision that there could be a situation where there's another emergency event that's not a PSPS event, where they would like to provide those same services to the community and use our facility. So it would follow all the same requirements. It's really just modifying and clarifying that it could be used for non-PSPS events. So with that, I'll try to address any questions of the council.
Any comments from
No, sir.
council? Mr. Kramer, Councilman Kramer.
I thank you, Mr. Flora, for providing the original agreement so I could look that over as well. As you all know,
It is. Is your mic on? We could.
yes, it is on.
I know.
At any rate, that facility was envisioned, the generator was financed through contributions from, including PG&E, and many other entities, both public and private, and hundreds of hours of work to prepare that site, including the generator, including the shower trailers, the whole process. About $300,000 in donated funds, not city funds, but donated funds that built this facility, plus hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of labor, of volunteerism to get it built, with the idea that it would be an emergency evacuation shelter first. That was the purpose of it. I don't have a problem with PG&E using it when we don't have an emergency evacuation shelter need. And I just would like to see this at least modified to the extent that it will say that the priority would go in the event that there was an emergency evacuation shelter need, that it would take priority over the license to PG&E for their use, which their emergency event is very open-ended. And to be honest, what does it mean? But I think that the shelters, the priority to that thing should remain to be an emergency evacuation shelter when that's happening. The PSPS events fit in fine. I didn't have a problem when we approved that last year, year before. I didn't have a problem with it because it wasn't anticipated to fall when there was a major fire and an evacuation of, say, the mobile home park on Dam Road, as it happened last year, or a larger fire. So I would like to see this thing, some verbiage put in here that would make it known that to PG&E and agree with that PG&E would agree that an emergency use of the emergency evacuation shelter would take priority over their emergency use, whatever that might be, emergency event. So that's what I would like to see.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Just to follow up on Councilman Kramer's comments, did they give any examples of what they were thinking of use other than PSPSs?
Well, to be honest, I believe they did, but I don't remember what it was.
Appreciate your honesty.
And so, I mean, I understand Councilmember Kramer's concern. The way the agreement reads is that if they call, so they call and contact me and request the use of it for a PSPS event, or if this is amended, some other type of emergency event. It's clear in the agreement that if we have an event already scheduled or the facility's being utilized for something else, that they don't have priority over that. Now, you know, the agreement allows both indoor and outdoor use. So say, you know, there had been an emergency, we were using the interior of the building for emergency evacuation shelter. They determined they were going to have to do a PSPS event. If you look at the agreement, it's clear that we could allow them to set that up outdoors. The agreement says that they won't do both. You know, I really feel like there's plenty of protections in there. I mean, I don't know if Councilmember Kramer is concerned about there being a PSPS event and PG&E coming and utilizing the community center and having an active CRC at the facility, and we have an emergency, say a wildfire where we need to have an evacuation shelter, we wouldn't kick PG&E, close down the CRC and open it back up as an emergency evacuation shelter. You know, we have plenty of other facilities in the county that could be utilized at that point. And, you know, it's not always appropriate. That facility isn't suited for every event. I mean, if we have 3,000 people evacuated and there's a need for a facility that's larger, that's when we turn and try to rely on one of the school facilities or something like that. So I think the language in the agreement covers that, with the exception of it doesn't cover that eventuality, but I don't think that that's something that we should expect to kick PG&E out if they already have that.
Well, I was trying to imagine what other circumstance, you know, I think we're pretty hardened on the idea that wildfires are first thought. But I could see if we had a non-scheduled power outage during winter, you know, people would need to come in and get cold if it was extended for any length of time. So I'm thinking along those lines, which I feel is absolutely appropriate, and we wouldn't have evacuations. It would just be to the people who needed service.
You know, there certainly is the possibility of conflict, and when we negotiated the first agreement, we had a lot of discussions with them about that, because we told them, like, if we're using it for emergency shelter, like, you're not going to be able to set up a CRC in there.
Right.
And that's kind of why we have the language related to the indoor, outdoor, and all that. I mean, parking could still be an issue if it was, there was a lot of people there, but at least it gives us some flexibility in trying to accommodate everything.
And then my final comment is there any agreement in there for shared cost for the use of facility? And
yeah, it's the same as the other one. So they would pay us $2,500 per day for use of the indoor, $2,000 for outdoor, and then there's some clarification on, you know, like if the generator's utilized, we track the fuel usage and they reimburse us for that, and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any, Mr. Claffey, Councilman Claffey, any comments on this?
Why don't you start with Councilwoman Overton? I think
Okay,
she has
Councilwoman
her
Overton,
hand up.
any thoughts on this? Councilwoman Overton, are you still with us?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is kind of how I look at it. PG&E is always very workable, especially during evacuations. If it's a PSPS, we have a fire, well, obviously the PSPS is still.
It does look like we have a representative from PG&E on the line, if you would like to ask her some questions.
Mr. Councilman Kramer?
Let's listen to the PG&E man.
All right, PG&E representative, please identify yourself, and you have the floor. Go ahead, PG&E.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My apologies. I'm at dinner for my son's birthday, and I just stepped outside, so I'm on the road, and it's a little bit busy. I did want to address a few of the concerns that I heard. One about the center. I just wanted to point out that in the addendum, it does state that if the community center is unavailable due to the city utilizing it for another event, then you can always decline the use. And then we would only open the Community Resource Center under the direction of the Lake County OES. So it would be the OES that identifies that, yes, this is an emergency event and we need to open the Community Resource Center. And in the most recent heat event, we had rolling blackouts, and we were asked to open some of these community resource centers to support those individuals that were impacted by the power outage during that time.
I have a question on, do you anticipate needing to use the bathroom shower facilities that are part of our emergency evacuation shelter? There's 4 of them there. Do you envisioning your emergencies, are you, in any of those circumstances, do you anticipate the need to use those?
No, we bring portable restrooms on site when we activate the Community Resource Center, and then those are removed following demobilization. So we would not need to use the on-site showers or restrooms.
Well, they're there.
And they're there, yeah.
For use.
We try to see the Community Resource Center as less of like a shelter, so advertising showers wouldn't be something that we would do on when we publicize it on our website.
So your use would not be as an emergency evacuation shelter? Even your emergency uses would not be as an evacuation shelter?
Correct, yeah. It would be to support individuals that were without electricity.
Okay.
So if, like I mentioned, the heat event where we had rolling blackouts, over the winter break, we had that Sierra snowstorm where we had many individuals that were out without power. We also have identified in case there's a major earthquake, maybe some other wind event or snowstorm where we have a lot of power, facilities down, and we need to restore for individuals, get them back up and running.
You heard my concerns as far as evacuation, emergency evacuation use, where people are actually going to be evacuated, and I agree with Mr. Flora, if it's 3,000 people, we're not going to handle that. But we might handle a part of that in that emergency evacuation shelter. So if we have a need to use that, and there are people that are coming into that, would you step aside or let that use take priority? In that event, they'd also be using the kitchen facilities. The whole shelter would be holding people for several days that would actually be staying there, not just coming and charging their phones or getting cool or getting water, those kind of things. And by the way, I do this shelter, when we put it together, PG&E was the first one that stepped up, and I really appreciated that with a couple of large donations that actually got the generator initially. So I'm certainly not anti-PG&E on this, but I do think that it is an evacuation shelter first, and if it's not needed as an evacuation shelter, then the second priority. So that's my concern with this agreement. I don't think it's quite that clear as Mr. Flora does, that the priority would be the emergency evacuation shelter, and that's my hesitation. And I would like to support it, but I would like to see just maybe even a sentence added that would say that emergency evacuation shelter use would take priority over PG&E's use. And I don't anticipate that would be very often that would happen, but I'd like to see it in the language, then it's clear to everybody.
Okay. Final comments? Mr. Claffey, please.
If I understood it right, Ms. Melton, you said that you would only launch that center if you were instructed to by our county emergency team?
That's correct.
Okay. And okay, thank you.
Okay. My final comment for me is that obviously the best and most urgent use will have priority for it, which is pretty, I think that's an acceptable way of thinking about it. So,
but it's not the obvious. That's the point.
I think we can pretty well determine if it's just a PS or a PS or if it's an emergency evacuation. Obviously, the evacuation center is going to be used as an evacuation center, not a
And put it
PSPS.
in the language is all I'm saying.
That's,
We heard from public on this?
Well, the language says that it's my decision, and I hope that you will trust your emergency services director in this regard.
I do. All right, we open it to the public. Any public comments on this?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, please, who do we have on Zoom?
There's no hand raised on Zoom.
No Zoom? All right, we'll bring it back to the council. Do we have directions to our city manager? I think we kind of do. Do we have consensus that I guess we need to...
I'd like to see our city manager and emergency services director move forward with the amendment.
Okay, do we have to do this by motion?
Yes, we should do a motion, yeah.
Okay, folks, are you willing to make a motion?
Sure. I make a motion that we approve an amendment to the existing agreement with PG&E to allow the use of the community center / senior center for non-PSPS emergencies.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Purdock and a second by Councilwoman Overton. Voice call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton?
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey?
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer?
No.
Vice Mayor Purdock?
Aye.
Mayor Slotin?
Aye. Okay, we go to city manager and council member report.
I don't think I really have anything exceptional to report tonight.
Okay, Councilman Kramer.
We had a LTA meeting, Lake Transit Authority meeting. Well, actually had a Lake Links meeting the day before yesterday, Tuesday, and our first board meeting with our new program director. Really pleased with the way she's taken hold of the position and look for Lake Links to operate a lot more efficiently and really make some great strides forward. Also attended the Lake Transit Authority meeting yesterday. One of the things, the motions that came across our agenda was the bus depot, where it's moving forward in the planning process. Excited about that the prospect of it coming to Clearlake. And that's, I'll let Vice Mayor Purdock talk about anything else with that and anything that he wants to say from the Chamber of Commerce. That's all.
Councilman Claffey, you have anything to report on?
So last week, I think we all had a great time at Cal Cities, learned a lot, stuff we can take back. Had a PEG board meeting on Monday, and while it doesn't directly apply to our city, I think there's some good motions within the county. It looks like the county is discussing funding some streaming equipment and some services so that our town halls throughout the county can get the same level of coverage and transparency that we enjoy here in Clearlake. And of course, we set some of the parameters on which we will purchase that equipment, and hopefully the county approves it. And that's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Overton, any to report?
I have nothing to report, but I do have a comment. I want to give the PEG station some real kudos on the sound and everything, and for the council meeting is much better. It wasn't the last time I was on. It was pretty bad, so I understood what the community was saying. You guys have done an awesome job about getting this where it's very good today. Is very excellent. So, and thanks everybody for speaking into your mics.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor Purdock.
Well, I want to echo the comments and thank you, Councilman Claffey, for recognizing our travel to Long Beach. I felt it was a better conference than the previous year, and I also want to commend the League of Cities for their efforts to overturn Prop 47, Prop 57, and reevaluate SB 109. I think we have significant issues related to those propositions when it comes to crime and to neighborhood safety, safe schools, et cetera. So I like that support. We also have an opportunity to participate further with, which I hate to see, former council member Turner from Lakeport, who had to resign for this new position with the county. Thought she did great work and was a good representative for the league, but that does leave a vacancy. And I'd just like to encourage my council member peers to consider that, as well as those in Lakeport to fill that seat. I like to have local representation in Lake County. I think it gives us an extra voice. That concludes my comments.
I second about the participation at the Cal City Conference. It was the programs were a lot better, and I particularly liked the one for retail in rural areas.
That was an excellent presentation.
I would think so.
Yeah, my only disappointment on the Prop 4757 is that there wasn't a state representative there to hear the concerns of the League of Cities. I thought that was pretty poor on their part.
I don't have a whole lot to report. Coming up is LAFCO this coming Wednesday, and it was an item added to the agenda about the water districts within the city of Clearlake. And I understand there were some issues at the last TANA fire, and I believe our fire chief has had some really concerns about the availability of water to fight fires within the city. So
I had meant to ask you, I saw that item on there. Do you know, was it initiated by Chief Sepulveda, or how did?
I don't know. I don't know. All of a sudden it popped up, so I haven't had a chance to talk to our LAFCO organizer.
And it concerned two different districts.
Yeah, I kind of looked up where the fire hydrants was, and it was in Canocti. It was the closest. And then on the other side of the road was Highlands. Just an additional comments on that. I mean, I was very pleased to see two water districts address the council on drought, and the largest district, Highlands, chose not to participate in that. I find that very disappointing. All right, I don't have any more. Any future agenda items?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I don't know that it needs to be an agenda item, but I would maybe like to suggest for our new finance director, if we could maybe carve some funding out of the budget for chairs here at the dais.
1, 2, 3.
This.
Come on. Oh, okay. Very good.
Anyway,
Yeah.
if there's any funding left over, discretionary, I don't know that it needs to come back to a council meeting, though. Thank you.
Probably not.
Thank you.
Good answer, city manager.
All right, we're recessed to closed session.